Hello. It's good to see you guys. I feel like I haven't been on here forever, but here I am. I'm Camille Mika, and today we are closing up our experiment with DNA. And I'm so excited to talk to our partner in just a little bit, who helped us totally write this plan and get the information out to you guys. I love doing this plan. I have done the DNA of my mother-in-law and her dad, and it's fun to have a direction now on which way to go. So that's one reason I was excited for this plan. It was also fun to take my parents' DNA and kind of combine them and see ethnically where I was from. And so that was a lot of fun. So in the comments, let us know what breakthroughs you had during the DNA month or what you learned. And yeah, I'm excited to read them. Okay, so to write this plan, we partnered with the DNA Guide, and we have the owner, creator, starter, Diane, here with us. So I'm going to invite her in. Okay, hey. Hello, Diane.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're here, and it's been so fun to do this plan. So
good.
I'm glad you're here to help us answer some questions. Why don't we start out with you telling us a little about yourself and maybe how you got into DNA?
Sure. Yeah, so I started into this path, I guess, career path, based on the advice of my high school English teacher, who told me, all of us graduating seniors, that as soon as you get to college, you should find a professor who's researching something you're interested in and get involved. And so I went to Brigham Young University, and I was interested in DNA and genetics, and I found a professor who was researching the DNA of ancient Egyptian mummies.
Wow, that's cool.
Right? I know, super fascinating. I was like, hey, that sounds fun. And anyway, that project turned into like the first genetic genealogy database ever. And this was back in like 1999, 2000. And from there, I just kind of stayed with the industry and ended up about 8 years ago going out on my own and starting Your DNA Guide, mostly because like, I don't know, but everybody is interested in DNA, or most people are interested in DNA, even if they're not interested in family history. DNA is something interesting and fun. And so they take this test and they're like, I don't even know what to do with this. And so there was this really big gap, I felt like, between what the company was offering to you and what you could really learn. And so I am just in the education business.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I wanted to be an archaeologist in Egypt when I was younger. So that's totally up my path. So that's awesome. That is great. I love that you decided to bridge the gap between the science and the humanity of it, to bring those two together. So thank you for doing that. So Your DNA Guide, kind of tell us more about your company.
Yeah, so we provide lots of educational resources. So our website, yourdnaguide.com, and we have a fantastic blog with lots of articles and information that are just, I like to think of them as bite-sized. It's not overwhelming. It's just a little bit at a time. I've also written a book called Your DNA Guide, the book. We keep things really simple around here. No complicated names. Let's just call it like it is.
I love it.
But what I really love is that over the years because we do mentoring also, where we meet together with people one-on-one to help them figure out what's going on with their particular DNA test result. And what I found over time, over all of these years of talking with people, is that while every situation is unique and different, there are some concrete steps that everyone can take to investigate their family history. And it was kind of mind-blowing that like literally everybody's different. Your genetics are different, your family history is different, and yet there are things everybody can do. And so that was kind of exciting, right? And so I wrote this book to just help you do that, to just navigate your way, because your path will be a little bit different than everybody else's. So the book's really meant to be like, okay, where are you at? Are you in situation A or situation B? Situation B, then I'm going to take you down this path. Situation A, we're going to go down this other path. So it's customized to whatever your results are. And then we also provide hands-on courses and workshops where you can really like dive in and really hands-on learn these things. So actually right before I'm talking with you, I just finished up talking with a group of people in one of my workshops, and it's so rewarding because we do, you know, there's instruction, but you can really only learn so much, like sitting and listening, right? I mean, it's great and all, but you need to like work. You need to like have examples and homework with real answers so you can like work through somebody else's problem and get to the end. I love it when people post, we have a discussion board in the workshop and people look, I got the homework right? It's just like back to our college days, and it was like so rewarding to like turn in a paper and get an A. So anyway, it's really fun. So lots of fun education.
Awesome. That is so cool. I love that you do the one-on-one. So that is something that if you guys are looking for more help, definitely go on there and see if you can get a one-on-one scheduled. The online classes are really cool. Gives you more in depth of what's going on. And then of course the book is awesome. I've read the book, or I have the book, and I'm probably about halfway through trying to work everything out, and it's helped a lot.
Good.
So
I'm glad to hear that. Good.
Yeah. So we have a comment from Olivia. She said that she loved that you narrowed it down to concrete steps that can be narrowed down to my own DNA. I love that. Yes. Yeah, it makes it more manageable and more doable to know where we're going next and what's going on. Yes, I love that. Okay. We have some questions that were asked beforehand. So, how does your DNA change? Like with the new ancestry update that just happened, people are getting different like ethnicities. And I know it's not that your DNA is changing, but like, how does that work? Why were they changing?
Yeah. So this is a really fun principle to understand, because I think once you get it, you're like, oh, okay, that's fine. It makes sense. And if you don't get it, you're like, what's going on? How come they did that? Right?
Yeah.
So I think the basics of it is to understand that your ethnicity results are based on a couple really large factors. One are reference populations. Okay, so it's the people that they're comparing you against. So if a year ago they only had 100 people from Italy, and then this year they have 700 people from Italy, well, they're going to be able to tell you a lot different information than they could last year. So a lot of their updates are based on this idea that we're getting bigger population data and more information that's making our estimates better. So along with that, and kind of related, is that the way that they run these algorithms involves some really fancy math. Okay. So as they get better reference populations, it also trains their algorithms to work differently and better. And so then the math gets better too.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And so so you said that they had like 7 Italians, and then now they have like 700. How do those groups work? Like, is it people who just say they're from Italy on ancestry.com, or do they just go and it's only compared to certain people?
Good question. So there's actually 2 different kinds of ethnicity estimates that you can get from Ancestry and from MyHeritage. Okay. And then the other companies really only have one kind. So the one kind that everybody has are based on these reference populations. And these reference populations are gathered very specifically. So in order to be qualified to be in a reference population, you have to have all 4 of your grandparents born within 60 miles of each other.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's like a really small group, right? And so these companies are going out and targeting specific population groups in a lot of cases. So like, for example, when MyHeritage first came out with their test, for the months before they came out with their test, they were reaching out to their customers whose genealogy they could see, and saying, hey, looks like all of your ancestors would you like to be part of our reference population, right? So they were targeting specific groups.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of our companies have that kind of ethnicity. And that's how it works, reference populations. But MyHeritage and Ancestry also have a second kind of better kind of ethnicity that breaks down your heritage into specific groups or communities. Okay, so at MyHeritage, they're called groups. At Ancestry, they're called communities. And these are based on the level of matching that they see between you and other people in the database. So again, it's that math that like takes this huge Ancestry database, and then the math says who's matching more closely based on this set of criteria. And you take this big group and you shrink it, these people. Okay, now let's look at these people. Let's add new criteria. Now who's still matching? And you shrink and you shrink and you shrink and you shrink until you get this like really solid core group of people that are all related to each other. And then they look at their pedigrees that they've posted in Ancestry or MyHeritage. And they're saying, okay, these people are all genetically related to each other. What location do they have in common? And so then they're looking at the location and saying, oh my goodness, you know, these people are all from XYZ. So for example, my mom's family is from a specific part of the Ukraine, but they got there from Germany. So they went from Germany to like this part of the Black Sea, and then they all moved to North Dakota. Okay. I know. Right. Very cool. In my Ancestry results and in my MyHeritage results, I am in a group that completely mimics that migration.
Oh, cool. Yes.
Okay. So the group says, Diane, you have an ancestor who's German, who moved to the Black Sea area and then came to North Dakota. And
that's crazy.
It's amazing.
I know. Yeah.
Amazing. Like all those years ago when I started working for the Sorensen Foundation in college, like this is what we dreamed of being able to do. And we're doing it.
I imagine. Yeah.
Okay. So you can see how those are totally different really than these other ethnicities, but they're kind of reported all together, all the same. But these groups are so much more valuable because they represent a very recent time frame. And you can really trust them in that if your ethnicity says you're 22% Irish, maybe not, right? But if they say you have Germans who went to the Black Sea, who went to North Dakota, you do.
You know, yeah. And then you can follow that trail.
Yeah.
It's more likely. That is so cool. That makes more sense now when I look at my Ancestry results for my mother-in-law and my grandfather-in-law, that it says your ancestors immigrated from here and here to here. And it's like, oh, now that makes sense on why they can say that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that. So that leads me into another question, which you've kind of answered. So I'm imagining I know the answer, but let's just put it out there. Okay. So my mother-in-law was told that she was 1/4 Indian. And the DNA that I got back doesn't have anything from Native American. But is that story busted, or is there a chance that eventually they'll have enough Native American DNA that it might eventually show?
Okay, you're totally thinking about that the right way, Camille.
Okay.
The thing that's tripping me up is the quarter. So to have a quarter would mean
it might not be a quarter. The story was that her mom told her dad that she was Native American, and somehow I was told it was maybe her grandma that was a full. I'm not sure, but I just threw that number out there.
That part makes a big difference. Okay, so if it's a recent ancestor, like a grandparent or great grandparent even, so you have lots of DNA from your close relatives. And if you have a great grandparent that was full-blooded Cherokee, it would show up on the test.
Okay.
For sure. Okay. But if it's a 3 times great grandparent that maybe or maybe not was, or maybe it was our 5 times great grandparent that was the full-blooded one, it might not show up, you know? Yeah. And so it's really about how far back is that ancestor. And you're right, is there a reference population for this group of people, which the reference populations for Native American are not great. They aren't, because a lot of Native Americans are tired of being tested. You know, they don't want to be that group, right? And so that's fine, but you're thinking about that the right way. But with that specific case, it really depends on how far back you're looking.
Okay. So if it's a grandma or a great grandma of hers, it should show up in the test. Yeah. If
she was full-blooded,
a group
right?
That's been,
Right. And so a lot of people say, oh, well, my great grandma was Native American, but they don't mean full-blooded. They mean that she had a little bit. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think that's a story that goes around, and people are like, oh yeah, I have Indian princess in me. And
sure. It's a big question. And one of the best ways actually to address it is not using Ancestry or MyHeritage, but using mitochondrial DNA. So mitochondrial DNA traces only your direct maternal line. So if you thought it was your grandma's grandma's grandma, then you find that direct maternal line descendant who maybe is her. She gets tested.
Yeah.
Okay. As part of your mitochondrial DNA results, you get something called a haplogroup, which is like a really deep, broad group that for Europeans basically doesn't mean anything. It means congratulations, you're from Europe. Okay. But there are very specific Native American groups. And so if we could see that her direct maternal line was from one of these Native American groups, then slam dunk. There is a Native American on that direct maternal line. It could be her great grandmother, and that's fine. But your mitochondrial DNA could tell you that.
Okay. I love that. Okay. So that leads me into, can you explain more on mitochondrial and Y DNA and why someone would want to research through those DNA tests?
Yeah. Well, so we just talked about one, which is great. Yep. Good segue. Didn't even know it. I'm playing right into your hands.
We did. I didn't know all these questions were related either. So this is perfect.
Good. So one of the best things about mitochondrial in Y is that with autosomal DNA, we really have a cap about how far back we can research. Okay. So with autosomal DNA, I recommend that you don't go looking for anyone who is your 3 times great grandparent, or if you want to find an ancestor, they have to be your 3 times great grandparent or closer with autosomal. But with Y or mitochondrial, there's no limit. You can go back as far as you want to and still do productive research. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is autosomal DNA is complicated. I mean, you see a DNA match and you don't know if they're on your mom's side or your dad's side, or, I mean, it's hard, right?
Oh, that's true. Okay.
But, so Y and mitochondrial, there's only one way you can be related to these people. Your direct maternal line and their direct maternal line, or their direct paternal line and your direct paternal line. That's it. Okay. I mean, you might not know exactly your shared ancestor or how far back, but like there's one choice. So
that is cool. That is cool. Awesome. So if my dad's grandpa is supposedly adopted, and we aren't sure if it's because, so great grandma got pregnant and then married the new husband or not. And so my mom's been kind of researching this, trying to see if she can prove that the family story is correct. And they had a cousin that married in from the other cousin. And so it's muddying the water for my mom to do this research. But would Y DNA work since it's my dad's dad?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So he tests Y DNA. And then ideally, the guy the mom married, if there's a direct male descendant of that guy to test, that he would test too. And either they'll match or they won't.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's still, I mean, the muddying the waters thing is hard. Like I can see how that could be difficult with a multiple relationship, whatever's going on there. But that's a relationship that's close enough that we could certainly answer that with autosomal as well.
Okay.
She should take my DNA skills workshop. That's like exactly what we do in DNA skills.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I will tell her.
Okay.
I wish she was on here watching. She normally is. Okay. Perfect. Okay. We had a question come in. I haven't read it yet, so let's see. Okay, I wonder, does your haplogroup really mean that much if it's based on such a tiny strand of lineage?
Okay, so Jordan, great job grasping that it is just one line. But
yes,
I ask you, like, is that one line just as important as all the other lines? Now, haplogroups themselves are broad and general. And so how helpful they are to you does depend on your lineage. I mean, they're super helpful if you're looking for Native American. But like I said, not very helpful if you're looking for, if
German.
am I German or am I English? Your haplogroup's not going to tell you that.
Okay.
But your haplogroup can be used in combination with your autosomal DNA. So like I was saying, if you match and on your autosomal DNA, you have no idea how you're related. But if that match is also sharing your mitochondrial DNA haplogroup, it's not a guarantee that you're both related on that direct maternal line, but it's a good place to start.
Right. Yes. And then you can start looking for the records or other relations that can testify to that.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you for that question, Jordan. Okay. Let's go to the question that was asked on Facebook. So this one's kind of long, but I know finding a third great grandparent from Sweden may be pretty unlikely, but that is what I'm trying to do. I have a few Swedish relatives who have taken a DNA test, but there doesn't seem to be any lead as to who that exclusive or elusive, I can't read today, third great grandfather might be. There is a family story that my grandmother and her mother told that has to do with the king of Sweden at the time and a serving girl at an inn. But these stories are very common as a way to explain an illegitimate child. So I'm still reading your book. She's still reading your book and trying to figure out that question. But she's just wondering, are there any more insights that might help her out?
Well, so great job already. First of all, understanding that finding a 3 times great is going to be at the edge of what autosomal DNA can do. So that's good to know up front. Researching ancestors outside the United States is also a little bit harder just because we have fewer matches from outside the United States, so that is changing.
Okay.
And it sounds like you've got some Swedish relatives who have taken a DNA test, which is awesome. Okay.
Yes.
So it's all about finding the right group of people in your matches that can help you answer the question. And so you've probably gotten that far in the book so far, but essentially you take these known matches that are related to this Swedish line, and you're using them to gather a group of matches in your match list that likely have something to do with this scenario. And so it's all about just finding the right group of matches and then trying to find what I call your generation of connection. So that means how far back in your matches tree do you need to go before you'll find your common ancestor? So if somebody's your third cousin, how far back in their tree would you need to go, right? So a third cousin shares 2 times great grandparents.
Yes.
So if this person that you've gathered that's a part of this group that you're pretty sure belongs to the line you want to research, if that third cousin only has a very small tree, you will have to build their tree for them. You'll have to push it back to those 2 times greats so you can get to that generation of connection where your lines should intersect.
Okay, that is awesome. And it's a clear way of explaining it and how that process works. So thank you. Yeah. I love that. I know a few people have asked this question before, but they're worried about like privacy or them being used in a criminal investigation. How worried should someone be, or how, I don't know, like, should they be worried? Mm-hmm. How often are they used in a criminal thing? And if they didn't do the crime, should they be worried about their family also doing it?
Right. So we're coming to this like intersection between our little genetic genealogy community and law enforcement. Right. And we kind of had a crash collision, and now we're trying to pick up the pieces and figure out where everybody sits. Yes. So for all privacy concerns, not just law enforcement, it's really important to know that our companies have different policies. And so you need to be familiar with the policies at each company so you understand what they are or aren't doing with your data. Okay. So when you get tested, you're presented in some way or another as you're registering the kit 2 different consents. Okay. The first one is, do you want us to test your DNA? Well,
well,
I'm assuming that's the you got the kit. Okay. So you have to say, yes, please. Okay.
Yeah.
The second one is going to be about their other goals. So all of our companies are doing research. So like I mentioned, into these reference populations or into these migration pattern ethnicities that MyHeritage and Ancestry does, that research requires people to contribute their data. Okay, so when Ancestry was thinking about creating this product, right, of these migrations, they could only use data from people who said yes to the second consent. That I said, yes, you can use my data to create a new product, essentially. Okay. One of the ways that that consent is used. So I can say, yes, Ancestry, you're welcome to use my data in doing other research, blah, blah, blah. If I don't want them to, which would be the more private way to go, I would just say no. No, you can test my DNA for what I said you can do. Don't do anything else with it.
Yeah.
So if you're concerned, that's the route you should take with every company.
Okay.
And just as far as law enforcement goes, Family Tree DNA is openly working with law enforcement, and everybody who tests with them is being entered into their law enforcement database. If you don't want to be part of that, you have to go into your settings and turn it off.
Yes.
Okay? But MyHeritage and Ancestry and 23andMe are part of this like cohort kind of that are saying, no, we'll not allow that. So, and they have not shared any information with law enforcement, and they're very adamant about their position. So there are different companies doing different things. You just need to make sure you know what it is and choose accordingly.
Okay, perfect. I love that. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. But Terralyn asks, what are you most excited about right now in the field of DNA research? What new things are coming?
Great question, Terralyn. I am most excited about big data, just the volume of people who are taking a test. There's a scientific tipping point, and it happened really around 2013, 14, where there were enough people tested that people were getting close matches and starting to make really big discoveries. And that trend has just continued. And what I love is that it's continuing now outside the United States. We're seeing many more people in other countries doing this. And that's just excellent news for us here in the US who are looking for our roots in other countries. So I just love, and I'm so excited by big data. There's just so much data coming in, and there's so much we can do and learn from it. And I'm also excited. So right now I'm working on a course for endogamy, which is when you have multiple cousins marrying multiple cousins over the course of many, many generations. So like Jewish populations are really good endogamy, and Acadians and French Canadians, and really any small town in nowhere USA, right? Has this problem. And what I talked about before, how you can find this nice group of people and then you focus on them, it just doesn't work with endogamy because everybody's related to everybody else. So you can't do that. And so I'm piloting some material right now with a group of people, and it's really exciting to think, you know what? There are things that we can do. It's not as easy as doing research when it's not endogamy, but there's stuff we can do, and I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to think that we can improve this. Like, we are at the beginning of this industry. And
this is a baby.
So much more to learn and grow. I'm excited about that.
Awesome. Jordan just asked, what's the next tipping point?
I think the next tipping point is when we reach that same crest or number outside the US.
Okay.
So, and I don't know how close we are to that, because our companies, unfortunately, I really would love to see this data. They don't report the demographics of their database. They'll give us total numbers of people, but they don't say how many are in the US, how many are outside the US. So I don't have a good feel for how close we are to that number, but it needs to be like 3 million people from a country, essentially, is kind of that tipping point.
Yeah.
Okay. So we want 3 million Irish people and 3 million English people and 3 million Italian people to take the test so that we can reach that kind of tipping point within those populations.
So that's our next goal, all you people, is to get 3 million people in each of these countries.
That's right.
Great question, Jordan. I love that. Awesome. Okay, we are running short on time, but I wanted to ask really fast, what are there like jobs people can get in the DNA world? And what does that look like? What does the job scene look like?
Well, it depends on kind of if you're thinking just genealogy or if you're thinking, beyond that. Certainly there's a need for better technology. I don't want to be stuck at just 3 times great grandparents. I want to find the 4s and the 5s and the 6s. So how do we do that? We need computational biologists, who combine math and science and create something that can help us break past that. I'm sure it's out there. We just need to think of it. So we need scientists of all kinds, better biologists, better statisticians, better mathematicians. We need lots of people who are willing to educate. So I feel like there's a lot of space in the industry that the little section of the industry that I'm in. Like if you are good at teaching and you like people and you like genealogy and DNA, then you can do this. Like we need more good educators because it's really confusing. And there's nothing worse to me than someone who decides they can't do DNA.
Right.
It's too hard. It's too complicated. They don't get it. They just don't have the right teacher. And I hate that there are people out there having that experience, that they're struggling on their own and they don't know where to go to get help. So
yeah, that is sad. What about the people who just took the test for the ethnicity, not for the ancestors? Do you think there's a way to convince them to do the genealogy?
For sure.
Okay. Sweet.
And this is the question on my mind constantly. Like, how do I capture that crowd to be my customer, right? As a business.
Yes, exactly.
That's certainly on the mind of our testing companies as well. How do they convert, right, these people who took the test into paying customers that want records? Right. And I think the number one best way we can be involved in that is to understand our own ethnicity results. So by having a conversation like we had today, better understanding when things change and how they look and why they are what they are, makes us a better ambassador, because we come across people every day who've done this for ethnicity purposes only. Your checker at the grocery store, the person sitting next to you on the airplane, like these are all people who've taken the test and they're like, nah. And you've got to take them from nah to what? I could learn what?
Yeah.
That's cool. Right?
Okay. So I'll be talking to your neighbors and see what ethnicity they are and tell them what they can learn.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's put in a quick plug again for your book. Why should we buy your book? I've already bought it, but why should they buy your book?
Well, first of all, it's 20% off. So I mean,
right, exactly. Oh yeah, there we go.
Sale. And again, it will get you unstuck. It will show you exactly what you need to do, exactly the steps that you need to take for your personal situation so that you can move forward in finding the ancestor you're looking for using your DNA.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, use this 20% off code. Get yourself the book. Get yourself unstuck. It is very easy to read. It makes it doable, and I can contest to that. So
awesome.
Definitely get the book. Yeah, no, I really loved it. You wrote it not correctly, but very personally, I guess would be a good way of saying that.
Yeah. You can also, follow us on social media as well. So we're on all the platforms, and you can subscribe to our newsletter. We do it once a month, and it's always some fun tips and things to try. So you can do that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I follow you on Instagram, and I've loved the little slides you guys put up that just explain something really little. And I've almost learned something on every one of them. So
yay, that's the goal. I'm glad you say
Go follow for sure. And this DNA guide is not going to go away or DNA test, or plan. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. The DNA plan is not going to go away. So if you didn't start with us the first of the month, you can still start now. You can start anytime. If you took your DNA test just yesterday, you can take this once you get your results or start doing it. So make sure you go to the plans page, and you can still do it at any time. So it wasn't just for this month. Awesome. Okay. We are going to start talking about next month. So Diane, you're welcome to stay on, or you can go ahead and go.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So much for explaining that to us. I learned a lot, and I hope everyone else did. So thank you. Really appreciate that. Yeah. So next month we are going to be doing preservation. So it may sound really scary, but we've broken it down into 21 awesome steps that just walk you slowly through it. And we've got a little video that will show us about it. So let's watch that one. Hey guys. Okay, so I love that video. So come and join us October 1st for the preservation station. It seriously walks you through preserving your family memories. It will go through not only memories, but through physical items like heirlooms. It will also go through those video and audio recordings that you guys have. And we'll show you how to make it more shareable, make it last longer, and make it accessible for everyone. So love it and so excited for it. So I hope you guys will join us. And we have a Twitter party on Friday. So make sure you join us for that. Pretty sure it's at noon. But we also, to write that plan, the preservation station, we teamed up with Melissa Barker. There you go. Melissa Barker. She's the archaeologist. Not archaeologist. Wow. I am on a roll today. Let's try this again. The archivist. Okay. So we partnered with Melissa Barker, and she's the archivist lady, and she has some great tips, and we will be sharing her website, which has some amazing articles on them for you guys to learn more and to get deeper into what you are trying to preserve. And I'm excited for it. I'm hoping it will kick my bum into getting some stuff preserved and taken care of. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys October 1st.